Well, Michael Lynk is a former UN Special Rapporteur for Human Rights in the occupied Palestinian territories. He joins us live from the Canadian city of London. Michael, thanks for talking to us. Your reaction to this school's closure and whether it surprises you at all. Certainly the timing is something we would seek to try and understand, I think, a little bit better in this instance.
This is the inevitable result of the two bills that were passed by the Israeli Knesset back in October that aim to shut down UNRWA operations throughout the occupied territories, including in East Jerusalem. Israel considers Jerusalem obviously as part of its own territory. The rest of the world considers it to be occupied. This particular closure of the 6 schools in East Jerusalem is now a further test of whether or not the international community will wind up standing up to Israel with respect to its breach of its agreements with the United Nations to allow UN operations, and particularly operations by UNRWA, in the OPT.
Michael, can you just try and shed some light on the situation for us as far as the motivations for this closure are concerned? The Israelis have cited their licenses, but does it go deeper than that?
Oh, it goes much deeper than that. They've long considered UNRWA to be a thorn in their throat. They've considered UNRWA to be the manifestation of the continuation of the question of the Palestinian refugees, the now 5 million or more Palestinian refugees, and the continuation of the demand of their right to return by wanting to shut down UNRWA using the excuse that there were a handful of UNRWA employees who might have been involved in the October 7th attack in 2023 by designating UNRWA as a terrorist organization, meaning that it wants to liquidate the Palestinian right of return. It wants to diminish the UN presence in the occupied territories, and it wants to ensure that it has basically its way in determining what, if any, rights the Palestinians remain to have going forward.
And Michael, given your expertise on the occupied territories, can you tell us what the likely impact and the implications of these closures are going to be?
Sure. I think the biggest implication is that later on this month, I believe starting on the 28th of April, there will be arguments made in front of the International Court of Justice in The Hague in response to a resolution that was adopted late last year by the UN General Assembly asking the International Court of Justice as to what are the obligations that Israel, as the occupying power, had with respect to honoring its agreements with the United Nations and respecting the fact that the territory remains occupied, and also Israel's responsibility for continuing the basic humanitarian services that are being provided by the UN in general, but by UNRWA in particular. We know that UNRWA has a huge operation in Gaza, which has largely been decimated. We know that UNRWA also has important health and education services to offer in East Jerusalem and in the occupied West Bank. All of this is in front of the International Court of Justice, which will likely make a decision on this question later on this year. And then it'll be up to the United Nations to decide how to wind up enforcing that, because I think probably the answer is going to be fairly clear that the International Court of Justice will determine that Israel is in breach of its obligations, and it has to allow the UN to continue its service operations to the Palestinians under occupation.
Michael, we know that the Israelis have already flouted previous instances of ICJ rulings, however, and are difficult to put pressure on for the international community. In terms of what the likely reaction might be among Palestinians who are also seeing a rise in settler attacks, who are also seeing a rise in attacks from the Israeli military as well. How is this going to feed into their reaction?
Your point is very well taken. You know, this is the most precarious situation that Palestinians have faced since the Nakba in 1948. We now have over 50,000 who were killed in Gaza, at least. We have almost 1,000 who've been killed since October 2023 in the West Bank. We have 40,000 Palestinian refugees displaced from the camps in Jenin and Tulkarem. And we have ongoing settler violence. The highest number of incidents of settler violence was in 2024, since they began counting in 2006. All of this means is that we're in a downward spiral with respect to Israel and the Palestinians. And the UN is going to have to make several key decisions over the next couple of months. First of all, what is it going to do come September 2025, when the 12-month time limit that the UN General Assembly has set for the complete end of the Israeli occupation comes to fruition? It's likely, obviously, that Israel is going to blow past that one-year time limit, and then the UN and the international community will have a major decision on their hand of how to handle this particular issue. And the way in which Israel is being handled now, with this intense bombardment of Gaza, with very little pushback coming from Europe or the international community, doesn't suggest that we're going to run into very troubled times over the next 6 months as the international community decides on what its response is going to be.
A lot of attention, no doubt, paid to that response nonetheless. Michael, thank you so much for your time there. Michael Lynk, former UN Special Rapporteur for Human Rights in the occupied Palestinian territories.
Thank you very much.